to have some shining examples of beautiful, amazing, successful couples and relationships with us to share some words of wisdom. So we're really excited about that. You know, this is an intergenerational, interactive experience. You know, is there anyone under the age of 17 in here? I love Baba. Well, I see some babies back there, but my daughter's 17, and I think we pretty much go, I know we go up to age 69, so just think of the range from 17 to almost 70. That's a wide range of experiences, stories, information, wisdom to be sharing, so I'm super excited about that. You know, I just want to remind everyone that we're in a room filled with so many different perspectives and opinions and outlooks. And so I really want you, once we get into the dialogue, to pay attention to the things and take to heart the things that resonate with you as an individual based on what you're going through. And if something doesn't resonate with you, don't take it personal. You know, don't take it personal. You know, I just want us all to speak our truth, to share, to listen, to learn from each other, and have a beautiful, beautiful time. And so we want to start out with some words of wisdom, some poetic words of wisdom from a phenomenal young woman who just so happens to be my daughter. Her name is Yaya, so it's a privilege and a joy for me to introduce to you Yaya.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So this is a piece called See Me. See me. See me in all of my glory, for I am not just this body, a commodity that alters, twists, and turns, yearning for the approval of society's crucial vision. What is the meaning of beauty? Truly, I ask myself in awe, recognizing that, there couldn't be just only one, or so I thought. See, I am not the shade of a porcelain doll made with luscious long locks the color of the yellow brick road, told that eyes resembling the deepest blue sea or the freshest of pine will be the luxury that redefines the storyline to how I see myself. That definition of beauty is not me. See, I have hair that's free as my curls defy gravity, and skin that gleams as the sunbeams light within me, and eyes the color of honey, the browns of earth's unfettered beauty. That is me. However, the pressure suffocates my being as my mind is being confined by the messages and misconceptions of what others think I need. Would you like to lose, Would you like to lose weight? Would you like to gain weight? In all the right places, of course. Be the girl that all the guys want and all the girls want to be. The reality is that I want to flee before my authenticity is compromised and at stake. The emptiness in my soul is further replaced by another implant and another injection, for my perception is blinded. What is beauty? Beauty is not a competition, for you will never be everyone's cup of tea. But ask yourself, why do you even feel the need to be? Beauty is not a competition, for we are all on our own path to blossoming not solely into existence, but to being limitless. Beauty is not a competition, for you are my divine reflection, the little girl who loved nothing more than looking at herself in the mirror, for her reflection was all that she needed to see. The little girl with starlight in her eyes and sunshine in her smile, the true epitome of beauty. See me. Sorry, I had a few little slip-ups up there. But I wrote this poem as a form of self-reflection and self-affirmation because, we live in a society where we are constantly bombarded by all of these standards to how we're supposed to live, whether they're mental, physical, or emotional, and that can further take a toll on how we see ourselves and how we can see the world around us and how we can interpret everything that we absorb. My journey with self-love is very constant. It's continuously happening, and I'm going through a ton of trials and tribulations to this day, dealing with how I see myself and recognizing the glory that is all within me, and understanding that, in the midst of all of the criticism, all of the negativity, that there's so much to be grateful for and there's so much to have gratitude for. We take such pride over the way we look, and in many instances that can further, take a toll on the way that we compare ourselves to other people, compare our lives to other people. We put a huge relevance over criticism other than we put a huge relevance of criticism over praise, and we focus on so many things that we have to improve on rather than the things that we already have. So it's just important to recognize and take those conscious decisions to affirm yourself, affirm your worth, and affirm all the things that you have going for you, because we live in a world where, for me especially, I'm not, the poster child for beauty. I'm not, the poster child for success, supposedly, but ultimately, it's not up to other people's decisions to decide how we're supposed to live our lives and decide how we're supposed to pursue our dreams, because as we're all individuals, we all have things that we're, here for. And I think it's important to recognize that and to do things that are solely for you, and to recognize that those standards ultimately were made by somebody, and standards are constantly changing. So the reality is that the standards that are created, it's not even that we're the issue for that, because society can't make up their minds for what they want to be beautiful or not, what they want to be successful or not. So it's just important to recognize that once you have that affirmation within you for how beautiful you are, for how glorified you are, it's so important. And you have that armor, that shield to recognize that, hey, I can navigate through the world. I can pursue my path regardless of anybody's thoughts, whether they're good or not. It's so important. So that's a little short thing for me. Thank you.
Thank you, brave daughter. Relationships. I can't say relationships without smiling. I love talking about relationships. And when I say the word relationships, I automatically hear 3 words: real, relate, and relay. Real, to be authentic. Relate, to reveal. Relay, to communicate. So I want to share a love story with you, a personal love story. Anyone who has come to a Women's Worth event before, they know that when I come up here, it's officially story time, like adult story time. So I want to take you back, way back. Okay, it really wasn't that far back. It was actually November 20th, 2016. A very special day in my life, because this was the day that I decided to look at myself, my life, and my relationships. I was 36 years young and fed up. I was over it. And I wanted to know why I had attracted the men who had been in my life. I said, what did I do to deserve this? So I proceeded to write down the names of my significant others and look for the similarities within each relationship. And in seeing the similarities, I discovered a pattern, my pattern. And in that moment, I realized that I had a pattern of attracting and settling for men who had all been insecure, selfish, irresponsible, manipulative, controlling, emotionally unavailable, and financially unstable. I was like, great. Isn't that awesome? And I can think about laughing about it now, but at that moment, having that epiphany didn't feel good. You see, I considered myself to be a secure, self-assured, confident woman, quite bold. And so I was like, how did I attract and entertain relationships that were so mediocre? I began to question all that I thought I knew about myself. And one thing I learned is that your unhealed hurt and pain will find and follow you until you choose to face it. That revelation made me dive deep into the abyss of my pain. And it forced me to face the hurt that I had felt from the first man I ever loved, my father. I wanted to feel this hurt and heal, and so I had to go back. I had to go way back to the age of 4 and look at how the mindless, careless, and selfish actions of my father taught me what a man was supposed to be. You see, his actions taught me that I wasn't worthy of being protected or provided for. His actions taught me that a man will abandon his family and never look back. His actions taught me that a man didn't have to be responsible or accountable for anything he said or did. His actions taught me that the words, "I love you," are nothing more than words that require no proof whatsoever on whether it's true. His actions taught me that a man didn't have to put in any work in order to be with me. Ultimately, his actions taught me not to expect anything from a man. And the most dangerous thing about that is when you don't expect anything, you're more likely to accept anything. So I allowed men into my life who mirrored his behavior. And I still blossomed into a beautiful woman, but I was a beautiful woman who didn't know and didn't believe that she was worth the work that is required in order to create, sustain, and maintain healthy relationships. Throughout my healing process, I've embraced the fact that healing for me is a journey, not a destination. And as I love myself through my pain, I continue to give myself permission now to no longer project my past into my future. I nurture my hurt with patience, awareness, compassion, care, and laughter, because laughter is medicine. Do you agree laughter is medicine? Exactly. I also unapologetically only allow men in my life now who are coming fully equipped with the tools that are required to value, honor, respect, protect, care, and love a woman like me. Yes. So I affirm for myself that although I'm still healing, I know that I'm healed enough, worthy enough, and ready enough to welcome healthy, loving relationships with someone who is in alignment with my purpose, and I won't settle for less. You see, it's easy to love, but most of our unhealed trauma and unresolved issues get in the way of us loving each other in the healthiest way. And I believe the more we love, the more we heal. And the more we love, the more we learn. And the more we love, the more divine we become. Because at the end of the day, love is the remedy. It's that restorative medicine that has the ability to repair, revive, and rebuild the parts of us that once upon a time felt broken. So the more vulnerable we are with ourselves and our loved ones, the more divine we become. And I'd like to end with one of my favorite quotes by Osho. And Osho says, "Love is the first experience of God. Knowing love is the first lesson in learning God. Love is the first step towards God. And God is the ultimate goal of love." Thank you.
I just want to start out by saying I gave birth. So this is a little challenging for me because I got a lot to say in a short period of time. So I'm going to say what I believe. I believe in love. And I believe that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I believe that love is unconditional, boundless acceptance of self and others. And I see myself in everyone I meet, and I love you. Now, I've been challenged with that. What do you mean? You see yourself in everyone? And I say, I see the best and worst of myself because I think we're all the same people. I'm capable of the worst, and I'm capable of the best, and I encourage myself to choose the best. I was born into love. I was born from teenage love. I was born into a loving, extended family. I had loving grandparents. They actually lived across the street from each other. I had loving aunts and uncles and cousins, and they became my brothers and sisters and friends. And I developed a community of loving people who were also like family. So I had auntie moms and little big mamas and all that good stuff that has no blood relationship but has heart relationship. And from that space of love, I was born into a community of legal segregation and discrimination and exploitation and no validation. And I had a beautiful, great, great, great aunt who said, child, you got to be your own self-validation. And so with that, I had a mother who said, if you don't think you're beautiful, why should anybody else? And I had a mother who said, if you don't love yourself, why should anybody else? And with those words of wisdom, I began to develop the resilience that we need in order to get through life. And life happens no matter how much love we're born into, no matter how much we feel for ourselves and others. Life happens. So I decided today to be vulnerable because your vulnerability is your divinity. So I want to step into my divine self and share with you when life happened to me for the first time in the largest way. Happened again, but for the first time in the largest way. I had 3 beautiful children. They were 2, 3, and 5 years old. And they always talked about having the perfect family. There was a lot of love, there was a lot of respect, there was a lot of fun. And then one day, I sat down with my sister, and she said to me that she was pregnant. And I said, by whom? And she said, I can't tell you that. And when someone says that, something happens in you, like, well, why can't you tell me? But I kind of let it slide for a minute, and then I asked her again. And she broke down crying, and she said, by your husband. Shock is a beautiful thing. I had no frame of reference for what I was hearing, so I went numb. And in that numbness, I had the opportunity to let time pass enough to be able to think and to heal. But I want to tell you, when we're shocked and when we're in that kind of pain, every thought imaginable comes to us. We think suicide. We think homicide. We think running away. We think fear. We think anger. We think all these things. My situation was very unique because the woman, adultery is not unusual, but the woman was my sister. She was 17 years old, and she was the sister that I had prayed for since I was 9. And she came into my life when I was 14. And so she was a sister-daughter-ish kind of relationship. And she loved me, and I loved her. And then there was this man who had professed his love for me for 8 years. Professed it to me, professed it to the world, and did wonderful acts of love. And he loved me. And yet, they both chose to do this thing that hurt me to my core. It was the resilience that I had learned through childhood, through love, that helped me begin to handle this situation. What do I mean by resilience? I mean, I believe everyone has within themselves that deep, 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 deep well. It's the place you go when life gives you the unexpected punch in the stomach. It's the place you go where your power lies. It's deep inside you. And when I went to that place, I realized I only had 2 options. Here was a man that I loved. Here was a woman that I loved. Here was my sister, my mother and father's child. I said, I can't tell them this. I can't go get comfort from my mother. And Lord knows no comfort would come from your daddy in that situation. And I didn't want to see him in jail. So I learned how to deal with this myself. And in dealing with it myself, what I learned is I only had 2 options. I had 2 options. I could love or I could hate. And when I thought about hating, I could hear my great, great, great Aunt Kate's voice. Hate only destroys the hater. I thought, well, what did I do to deserve this? And then I realized, oops, the ego is a big thing. Do you realize that when people do what they do around you, it has nothing to do with you? People do what they do for themselves. And so I had to let go that something had happened to me. I had to accept something had happened in my presence. And in coming to terms with that, I decided to choose love. I decided to choose love because I wanted to live my life. I wanted to live in joy. I wanted to live in peace. I didn't want to live in anger and resentment and revenge. I didn't want those thoughts in my head because I had 3 beautiful children. And what I know is our children live their parents' lives. They live our lives. Don't think they don't know. In fact, I wouldn't have known really. I wouldn't have been alerted if one of my children hadn't said something to me. And so it's important for us to understand that love isn't a weak thing. It isn't a fluffy thing. It isn't a, soft skill. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. It not only allowed me to save my life, it allowed me to save the life of others. I'm just saying. One of the biggest gifts you will ever have is to discover that sometimes the worst thing that has ever happened to you at any moment turns out to be the best. Why? Because it taught me how to love deeper. It taught me how to love broader. It taught me that love is unconditional. Does that mean people have to be up close and personal? No. One of my favorite quotes is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You have to love your enemy. He said, I don't mean an affectionate love. You just have to accept who they are. Because when you accept who people are, you don't expect them to be something else. My grandson has a quote I use on a regular basis. It is what it is. It be what it be. And it do what it do. And when you can accept that things are the way they are, then you can begin to transcend them. How do you transcend them? I transcend them like this. I am because we are. And we are, therefore I am. I am love, and you are love. I see you, I see me, and I love you. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Mom. Okay, so now we're going to get into the part of the dialogue. It's going to be a collective dialogue. I want everyone to feel open and ready to participate. The first part is going to be focused on self-love. So any questions around self-love, I'm going to run a mic around along with Dom. He's in the back, and so you're going to step to the mic, or you're going to use this? I'll use this mic. Testing, testing, testing. Okay, so self-love. Any questions, comments around self-love? Challenges around self-love?
Right here, one question.
You'll be second.
Hi, I love you guys. Good to see you. I'm Tanjanae. I'm in Professor Lewis's class, and I wanted to ask the 3 of you your opinion on something that I think about a lot of times is when people talk about self-love, it involves a lot of being alone. And I find that to be a really turbulent narrative for some people because they don't like being by themselves. I was hoping you could extend on the idea that self-love sometimes involves others.
Well, it's so funny because me and my grandma were talking maybe a few weeks ago about how important acknowledgement is, just in the fact of acknowledging yourself, but also recognizing that, we as people, just as much as we need self-fulfillment, it doesn't hurt to get fulfillment from others. It doesn't hurt to get validation from others. It's not going to be anything less beneficial than it is if it came from itself. It's just going to be an addition to everything. And I feel like the only time involving others in such a, intimate, vulnerable state is only when they're your only form of motivation. So if that person leaves, where all your motivation go? Where's all your love go? But to have people like my grandma, to have people like my mom, to have friends and family be there to support me when I know I'm definitely not feeling the best at times, it just helps you feel that much more valuable, because I know that in the midst of all of the messages that I'm telling myself and that others are telling me, it's so important to have people there to recognize, like, hey, you're beautiful, hey, you're doing things, you're doing great things, and to have people there to comfort you in a time where you feel like you can't personally comfort yourself.
And I agree with that as well, just to piggyback off what she said. You just got to make sure you have the right people around you. You know what I mean? Because for me personally, a lot of my healing has come with the help of other people. Those people around me have helped me get out of my own head, and so I definitely think, along with having alone time, because you have to have time with yourself, but sometimes you can be your worst enemy. You think of the word enemy, and I hear the inner me, you know what I mean? And so having other people around you who support you and love you and can validate you, like Yaya said, is very important. I'm going to come right in here. Oh, really? That's the same question.
We go.
So I want to add to that because, for years, I'm cute, you know what I'm saying? And I always thought I was cute, and I like those mirrors that, multiplied you and you could get inside and see more of yourselves. And I used to struggle wondering why people didn't love themselves. And then I was in a really bad car accident, and in that moment, I began to understand it because I had a brain concussion, and nothing about myself felt familiar. So I couldn't see myself. I literally felt like a ghost of my previous self. And when I started coming back together and listening to young men who had brain injuries from football and other sports, what I learned was I couldn't see myself. And most of us don't see ourselves. And that's why we struggle with loving ourselves, because if we could see how magnificently made we are, how uniquely made we are, we're one of a kind, even when we're twins. We're one of a kind. I had to go there. But are you following? And so part of our challenge is see yourself. Take time to spend that alone time for self-reflection, not based on what other people have been saying to you, but what you see and what you start to say to yourself.
Hi. I guess I'm personally struggling with self-love because I've been an observer of domestic violence, a victim of domestic violence, and a perpetrator of domestic violence. So trying to find self-love and peace in a new relationship with those truths is a challenge for me currently. So
Hurt people hurt people.
mm-hmm.
Hurt people hurt people. Once again, our ego takes it very personally, but the reality is you're going to let that hurt out somewhere. And you usually do it in the place where you feel safest. Usually we do it on our children.
So when you speak about that, that's what I do. I'm a domestic violence advocate. I'm someone that has been abusive in a relationship myself. And so I've had to start with self-love myself. And so what I do now is I present at conferences, I speak to offender groups, I speak to victims groups about domestic violence and what it's like to actually be that person and then have to heal from that. And so the self-love piece is paramount. It wasn't about anyone else. It was not about who I was with. It wasn't about any of that. It was about me digging into me and doing the work on myself. And when I did that work, I had to remove everyone else. There was no other relationship. I had to just be by myself. And And it was lonely at times, but it was necessary for me to heal and get to a place where I can stand in front of you and say that. And so I commend you for standing up and saying, hey, this is me, this is my truth, and I want better, because that's the first step. But the love piece is accepting your experience, accepting how you got there, and then working on how you change. And it's a process. We'll talk more, but
I also want to add to that. When I see people that are angry or violent, I never ask them, what are you mad at? I never ask them, why are you angry? I just ask them, what hurts? It's amazing how quickly it can get you to the core of what's really going on.
I have someone right here.
So when you were speaking before, you mentioned like seeing yourself. So my question is just like, how exactly do you do that? What does that process look like? Being able to like see yourself and love yourself.
You know, things are fed into our spirits very young. So for me, I was very lucky because I saw myself very young. And I liked what I saw. And I was encouraged to like what I saw. When you can't see yourself, you're usually listening to somebody else's tapes telling you who you are, what you should be, what you should want, what your life should look like. In our quiet moments, we are spoken to and spoken into. And some of us are afraid to be alone, but it's so important to have that alone time and to affirm, how can I not be amazing? How can I not be? I'm human, I'm here, I made it. How can I not be the gift? Everyone in here is the gift. And we have to begin to embrace that. Just meditate that or think on that for just a few days. I am the gift. And see what comes up for you. And see if you don't become aware of some of the gifts that you bring into the world. Because you all brought gifts. You're here to share your light with us, or your brilliant light. And so spend time identifying, what do I do well? Because we've been told what we haven't done well. You're not good at math, you can't dance. If you want to dance, all you got to do is go like this. That's it. That's it. That's all you got to do. We are all dancers, I'm just saying. So we have to do it our way and not compare it. Comparison is fatal to self-love.
That kind of thought process was how I approached the poem that I was writing, just as far as the fact of, recognizing how much I want to be seen and how much I remember seeing myself and how much I remember people seeing me. And then at some point I felt like that just vanished out of nowhere, and I'm like, where did that come from? And one of the biggest things that I have to remind myself as far as, loving myself and loving all that I am is to remember, my mom tells me this all the time, to remember that little girl, who loved looking at herself in the mirror, who didn't see any flaw, who didn't compare herself, who didn't criticize everything that was appearing in front of her because this was her, As soon as you get exposed to how other people are living, how other people are looking, and how society definitely puts such of a pressure of the standards that we're supposed to abide by, that's where kind of all of your authenticity kind of just goes away, because we spend so much of our life trying to imitate and mimic other people's lives and other people's clothes, other people's lifestyle. It's a life of imitation where everyone is kind of creating the same person, but there's no more authenticity left. And the authenticity is coming from you, coming from that child who didn't care about what other people thought, who did things purely for them. I remember I was 4 years old, I used to walk out the house with different pairs of shoes on. I did not care about what other people were thinking. I used to do crazy hairstyles. I did not care. But as soon as someone said, oh, that looks weird, oh, you should do this instead, you start hearing all of these things that cause you to compare. How you said comparison is so detrimental, and especially because we are in a generation where we have a lens into other people's lives that we've never had before. You know, we can see how other people are living. We can see how other people are looking. We can, you know, and sometimes we can see the facade behind it with Photoshop and all that stuff. But, you know, it's like, this is an area of life that we've never gotten before. And because of that, it's just more room for comparison. So it's ultimately just trying to, you know, debunk all of that. But it takes a process because I'm still comparing to myself all the time. So, yeah.
Just to add something to that, I always tell my daughter that I feel for like her generation, because my generation, when I was her age, we didn't have Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And so the comparison was much less, like so much less, to where you could actually feel good about being yourself and actually enjoy being you. But with social media and the constant bombardment of looking at other people, it's hard, even for me. Now, like sometimes I just have to like take a break and not get on Instagram because I'll be like, damn, I need to get in the gym. Like, no, I'm good. I don't have to get in the gym if I don't want to, but it's like, you know what I mean? You'll find yourself finding something to nitpick about yourself, comparing yourself to someone else,
So I want to say, because I live with old people in my head, because I always loved hanging out with old people. And the reality is we have come to allow strangers to determine how we feel about ourselves. And one of the pieces of resilience that I got growing up in legal segregation was that there were people who don't know who I am. Why would I let them determine how I feel about myself? You know, when people say negative things to you, it's usually telling you who they are, not who you are. Why do we take it on? So it's about really understanding that. And the most important thing is, what are you saying to you? The self-talk in your head that's constant. You're constantly talking to yourself. What are you saying? And do you know you can change the conversation?
we're still on self-love.
Hi, I'm Vaughn Fisher, and this is my first Women's Worth event, so I'm glad to be here. But I wanted to ask about self-love as it relates to self-care. We oftentimes think that self-care is just bubble baths and manicures, but there are so many other facets of it, like emotional care and financial care. So I wanted to ask you ladies, what's been the one, I guess, most revolutionary thing that you've done for yourselves that was a real act of self-love?
That's a great question. I think for me, removing people from my life that are toxic. You know, sometimes, especially when I have a lot of compassion. And so when you have a lot of compassion for people, you can tend to always make an excuse why someone should still be in your life, or why they need you and they need your help with something. But allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to say, no, this person is not healthy enough to be in my space at all. No text, no email, no nothing. You know what I mean? That is a sense of freedom. You know, so for myself, I say removing toxic people out of my space.
For me, I feel like self-care and self-love relate on so many levels, and there's so many different kind of chapters, I guess you can say, to what, you know, self-care can mean to so much. I feel that self-love ultimately is a form of self-fulfillment. You know, everything that you're doing in your life is something that's purely for you and purely for your own benefit and betterment of your life and how you want to maneuver throughout the world. I feel like there's you know, physical forms of self-care and self-love that you can do, like you said, getting your nails done, all that stuff, And it's important to recognize how important those things are, because, you know, we still have this physical realm that we're, you know, living this life for, so it's important to care for it. You know, our bodies are a temple, so you want to treat it as such. But I understand what it's like to, when the way you're feeling in your head, how that can manifest into the physical, as far as, you know, you feel horrible, so you're like, why am I even trying to like do anything for this body, because I don't feel great right now, so I might as well just have my body match how I'm feeling. But, you know, that's not the way to go. I feel like something as simple as taking a shower, getting dressed, getting ready can help, yourself, because it's kind of like one of those physical first steps that you can take in order to kind of help yourself mentally. You're like, hey, I did get ready today, and I look pretty okay. So, I'll walk out the world in all my glory, and I'll, maneuver as such. But also, just as far as with self-fulfillment, doing things that make you happy, I think that's the ultimate form of self-care for me. And I feel like for so many years that I've kind of put my personal priorities to the side for, what society wants, what people around me want, and ultimately, no matter what you're doing, if it's not for yourself, you're never going to get any enjoyment out of it. So, stuff that brings me the most, happiness personally is like laughter. So that's my form of self-care for me. I love making people laugh, and I love people making me laugh, so, yeah.
Most of my self-care is internal, and it's the places I go within myself to create joy, to create happiness, to create peace. Because for me, if I'm not internally cared for, the external, it becomes very insignificant. But I do want to share that I went to a place called Ixtapa, Mexico, and I was hanging out with the women from the Nation of Islam. They were all Muslim women. And, we all interact with people based on stereotypes. But what these women taught me was how to take care of my mind, my body, and my spirit. Because every morning I would watch them get up and cleanse themselves. And then when I would watch them pray. And then I would watch them go get facials and all this stuff that we don't think women who cover their faces would do. And what they were really helping me understand is that my upbringing had made me feel that to do that self-care was egotistical, et cetera, because in the Judeo-Christian, the body was this sinful place, and so don't take care of it. And so one of my dreams is to help women, no matter what their beliefs, understand that this is a temple, that it was created and divine, and that part of loving ourselves is taking care of the temple, internally and externally, and in the mind.
So, in relating to self-love, how do you give yourself self-compassion when you're dealing with the healing process and dealing with the pain that comes up? Because that's been the hardest thing for me, is allowing myself the self-compassion through all this stuff that is coming up and that I'm having to process and deal and heal from. How do you accept and give yourself that self-compassion without being so hard on yourself? Because you see the good, but you also see the bad that comes out of the trauma that you've been dealing with. So how do you give yourself that self-compassion in order to navigate the healing process, is my question.
So my first thought is, how do you see the good if you haven't experienced the bad? That's how we recognize it. And so we separate it. We say, this is the good and this is the bad, but it's all connected. And so part of compassion comes from the blessing lessons. If we know we've all gone through something because we're alive, and that something is like the thing that polishes us. For me, I say, I love Khalil Gibran when he says, as love crowns us, so shall love crucify us. As love is for our growth, so is it for our pruning. See, we want that love like romance love, it's always good and flowers and candy come with it. And that's fine, that's a nice fantasy, and I enjoy fantasy, but the reality is, and you're gonna probably hear from some of our seasoned lovers, that it's about the thing that moves us through those times. Compassion is something we have to give to ourselves, and we're all challenged. We're more compassionate for others than we are for ourselves, Aren't we worthy? Aren't we worthy? And so we have to give to others all that we give to ourselves.
I feel like, especially when talking about self-love, you say it from a place as if, you're not still battling with it. And it's something that I'm incredibly still battling with, and it's important to acknowledge those feelings. You shouldn't put those aside. If you have a negative feeling, you shouldn't just keep that bottled up, and it's important to let those thoughts and those messages out, and like my grandma says, be capable of transcending those things. And it definitely is not expected to happen overnight, because my battle with self-love is, as much as you want to say, you're still, being capable of loving yourself, I feel like, especially now, I'm going through a stage where it's incredibly hard. And I have to recognize that I can acknowledge all that is bad, but like I said, acknowledge all that is good at the same time, because there's so much out there to live for. And sometimes in a place like that, just as far as talking about other people being there to support you and help you, it's so important to have that for someone, because there are times where I'm just like, is it worth it? You know what I mean? So just recognizing that, these are my thoughts in the moment. And what is the coach you like to say, like, why stop 5 minutes before
Why give up 5 minutes before you?
why give up 5 minutes before your miracle? So, you know what I'm saying?
And if I can just add on, because I know you and love you so dearly, you're there for people in ways that I've never seen before. The way you come through for people, the way you've come through for me. And just know that you deserve that in return. And every time you reach out, and hold your head up high when you cry. That's what my girlfriends do for me when I cry. They say, never put your head down when you cry. Hold your head up and be proud, because when you reach out and you allow someone to know, sis, I'm going through something, and I am right there. When you say, sis, I need you for something, and I'm right there, that's what love looks like, and you're receiving it. You're allowing yourself to receive it. So reach out to the people that who got you like that. You know what I mean? And you're doing it. So give yourself some credit, because you're reaching out. And we all are going through stuff, and it's life. It's life. You know what I mean? And sometimes when we focus on the bad versus the good, it's life. And so you're loved. There are certain people you can call on who will be right there. And you're one of those people, right? Girl. Okay? So I just want you to know that you're doing, your question was, you're doing it. You're reaching out. We're all going through stuff. And you're reaching out. And just knowing you got to go through it to get through it. Right? Okay.
We love you.
Yes, we love you.
I just want to say real quick to that point, I want to stress what Starla was saying as far as allowing yourself. You have to give yourself permission to be compassionate with yourself. If you have to sign a contract with yourself, I'm going to give myself permission to be compassionate with myself, to give grace to myself, to give love to myself, to value myself, then do whatever you need to do, because in this world it's very difficult to get it out there, and so it starts with ourselves. And so I just want to say that you said, how do I give myself the compassion? You simply make a choice and say, I am going to give that to myself from this point on, and then work that out every day. It's an intentional thing. And on the other side of the spectrum, as a man, hearing women and hearing the love and hearing the power, I want to say, fellas, this applies to us. Please make sure that we understand and to piggyback on this, because our self-love looks a little different, but it's the same thing. When we love ourselves, we don't behave in the ways of the stories that you talked about, Ishe. We don't behave in the ways that, we don't harm others. So my self-love looks like, if I know I can't be in a situation with a person, I'm not going to go in to take from them. I'm not going to be selfish. I'm going to practice self-love. And I'll say to someone, hey, you know, it's just, I'm not in a good place right now. And I'm not going to harm, because that's something as a man that I have to be aware of, because I'm in a position of power in a lot of ways. And so when someone comes to me, how do I exert that? How do I use that? Am I responsible with that, or am I irresponsible with that? Self-love will make sure that I'm responsible and accountable with it. And I've been on both sides of that extreme. And so, but this starts with giving yourself permission to love yourself. And I just wanted to say, for us men, please, make sure we hear this, and it has to sink in for us, because they're showing us. Every time we hear self-love, we hear women speaking of it, but we don't speak of it. But we need it just as much as they need it.
Thank you for that, Dom.
Hi, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. And to piggyback off of that, but on the other end, my question is about balance, and I'm not really sure how to phrase it. So, I used to really love myself. I was very happy. It was impossible to make me mad. And then I went through a lot of trauma and a lot of things and a lot of loss. And I started questioning, did I love myself from the inside, or was it because of all that I achieved and all the love that I received externally? And now that I'm feeling totally unloved, is that why I'm not loving myself? Anyway, bottom line, due to a lot of loss, I found myself hating myself so much. And with a lot of therapy and support and things like that, I began to learn to love myself just for being alive. And here's where my question comes in. I'm afraid I took that way to the other extreme, where I became so comfortable not achieving anything, just being able to wake up and breathe in the morning, and not being at whatever level of life and career or marriage that everyone else expected me to be. Until one day I realized, fuck, sorry, excuse me. I'm out of money, I'm out of this, I'm out of that. Am I too relaxed? Am I so in love with just being with myself that I'm not caring about it? I mean, it was a long journey. It's been a long journey. But I got afraid I reached the other extreme, where I was just comfortable and I didn't give a damn. And I was allowing myself to go at my own pace and life to take its own pace. And I was comfortable now just getting any job that would pay my bills. It doesn't have to be a high-level job. Like, I knew it's the level that I belong. Yeah, so how do I find that balance? Now, eventually, my dream job and other things then just found me. After I loved myself and I was okay with not having anything, the things that I wanted started to just find me. But what if they didn't find me? You know, how do I wake up? How do I love myself fully and still push and stretch myself? I don't know if my question makes any sense.
So, one of my favorite things in life to do is to be. And I say all the time, I just want to be. Mom, where you want to go? I just want to be. What you want to do? I just want to be. We live in a world that has this pace. And in that pace, we go out and we do things. But we must be, if that makes any sense at all. And I always say, we program people to the pace because we never asked people, who are you? Who you be? We always say, what do you want to be? And in that becoming, we get disconnected from that we already are. We're already whole human beings. And so part of our challenge is to get comfortable in the be. We don't have to be doing something all the time. Achieving quiet moments is a success. Being with a friend or being at home, that's a success. And we don't see it that way because of our programming. So I watched you, I'm part of your journey, and you're a whole being. And it only when we start questioning that, you know, and I want to give an example, because yesterday I was at the Women's Summit, and we had caterers, and they gave us great food, And the woman said, I have a college degree, and I went backwards and became a caterer. I went, what? I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, I have to say something right here, right now. I said, you are living your passion. You are making all these people happy. You are being who you want to be. Often we achieve this other stuff because somebody told us that looked good on the resume. But the reality is we have to put our heart into it for it to be fulfilling on any level. And really what you were talking about is fulfillment. How do I just be fulfilled? And it will be different for everyone in this room when we give ourselves permission to, as my friend would always say, have your passion and your purpose and connect those two things.
Okay, now we're going to move on to family and friends.
Before you move on, there was a young man right in here who had his hand. Yes.
Right here?
One more time. EBC?
Right here.
Okay.
I just had a very similar question. Like, at what point does self-love become to the point where you just conform to yourself and you forget to keep pushing to follow the dreams that you originally had? Like, if you just like, you look in the mirror one morning and you're like, okay, I'm perfect how I am, and you forget to, you see everyone else's advice as a negative thing rather than something that you can use to push yourself to the next level.
Okay. That's an excellent question. I am because we are. And we forget to see ourselves in one another. We're individually connected. Does that make sense? And part of our thought process is, I need to do this for myself. I need to do this for myself, and I have to ask myself, how is it going to impact those around me? I'm not doing it because of them. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm doing it for me, but I still have to be conscious of how it impacts them. Now, if my parents have a dream of me becoming an accountant, and I have a dream of becoming a pilot, and they tell me the only degree they'll pay for is an accountant, then I have to be creative. How do I get my degree paid for, because I don't have no money, and still be who I am? And so what happened? I go to Palomar Airport. I get a job. The perks of the job are free flying lessons. And I get a double major in accounting and aerospace. Are you following? In other words, we have to be creative, but we can still understand we can fulfill our dream. And sometimes it's just, I can't do this until I make a move. Young people in my classes say this all the time. My mama won't let me have my girlfriend over for the night. And I'm grown. I said, well, that's an easy solution. You grown. Get some place to live so you can have your girlfriend over whenever you want, because then you'll be in your house. See, this isn't rocket science. We can do for ourselves and others. So we're going into, which love are we going into?
Family and friends.
Family and friends.
You know, it gets tricky because, you know, with family, I work with my family, and with family, you have issues, you know, and people always say, you know, it's hard to work with family. And it is hard to work with family because there are always issues, you know, so let's talk about some of the challenges. Everything doesn't have to be a challenge, of course, but let's talk about some of the things that come up in trying to cultivate healthier relationships with our family members. I know, like, there are people who get surprised that my sisters and I actually genuinely like each other. We love each other, but we actually like each other. We like to hang out. And people are like, y'all really like each other? It's like, yeah, we do. You know, a lot of people that I know are like, you know, there's one sister that's always jealous of, like, the three of us, and my other sister's not here, but I think one of the reasons why we haven't had a lot of jealousy and certain issues that other sisters have is because we saw what happened between my mother and her sister. So we saw that young, and so we valued sisterhood in a way that maybe a lot of people take it for granted. So let's talk about just some of the issues that come up with family. Anyone by a show of hands? Any questions or comments? Either side.
So I'm going to help you a little bit. I worked at San Diego State for several summers. We had 300 youth. And one day, we had a week of forgiveness. And everybody was forgiving a family member, usually a mama and a daddy. And so to act like we don't have family issues means those issues will never get resolved. So who you need to forgive? I'm just saying. Yes.
How do you, coming from a culture where you're the oldest and you feel like you're responsible for your family and you feel obligated, how do you draw boundaries with your family and say, I love you, but I can't be responsible for you because it's stopping me from being me? I think I come from a place where to show your love means you have to, your obligations define your love to your family, but that doesn't align with who you want to be in the world. And so how do you show your family, I can't be responsible for you, but I still love you, you know?
So how old were you when you first started being responsible for your family? Because I think I met you around that time.
No, we're like
7? Okay, 7. And how old are your people you're responsible for now?
They're grown now.
Okay. So sometimes you have to tell them your story. And you have to help them understand that when I was 7, I took on all this responsibility for all y'all because I love you. Y'all grown now. And it's time to share responsibility. See, family is really about cooperative economics and collective work and responsibility. And if we don't share it, then we're going to lose a family member because it becomes too much for one person. Does that make sense? It's like when I talk to my students, your parents were people before you met them. They had dreams and all kind of stuff. And a lot of it they put on hold to parent you. And so at some point you have to step up. Doesn't mean you have to leave home. It means you have to be responsible in the home that you live in because you're grown now. Does that make sense? They're grown now. Let them be grown. Love them into grownness. Who's going to be next?
Me.
Okay.
Earlier, Ishe talked about removing toxic people from your space. I have several in my family. I'm one of 11 kids. I have a sister that I do not get along with. And it doesn't bother me at all for about 10 months, but then there's like birthdays and holidays, and I have to be around her. Now, when we were younger, it's easy to do the silent treatment thing, but we're adults now. So how do you navigate a space with a relative that you've already, depleted the relationship? You've already decided that their them doesn't work for your you, but you still have to share, other family, events, stuff like that. I don't have to talk to her person, but I come from people that are like, well, y'all family, and I just don't run with that. So how do you navigate those situations when you really ain't messing with that person?
Dom, you want to take that?
As she was talking, I was thinking about a relationship. My brother was, we had some issues early on, or actually later in life. When we were growing up, he was like my father. And then when we came of age, and I was about 21, he was about 26, he started using drugs, so he went off into that life. And then, we had some issues with the Child Protective Services. My nephew got put in the system, and then, he blamed me for that. And so he and our relationship just went south. And I say, you're the one using drugs, it's not me. But so we went back and forth like that for 4 or 5 years. And one day, I was like you. I was like, I don't have to talk to him. I don't need you. You don't pay my bills. I'm good. One day I was driving, and it just felt like God showed me him, showed me his life. He was the oldest, and he took all the brunt of a lot of things in our family because my mom was on drugs, my dad was on drugs. It was just a chaotic life, and so he was our protector. And so I feel like I just got a snapshot of his life, and I looked at his life, and I looked, and I said, wow, he really did try. And after that moment, it was just in me to just call him and just say, I'm sorry. I didn't feel like I did anything wrong, so I struggled. I was like, this is your issue. Like, I'm not doing this. But I did it. I picked up the phone and I called him and I said, listen, I'm really sorry. I know, whatever happened, I didn't mean to hurt you. That was true. I didn't mean to hurt you. But in the humanity that we all suffer from, we hurt each other. And he was just quiet. He didn't say anything. I talked for probably 3 or 4 minutes, and I just said, I'm sorry. I apologize, for whatever I did to hurt you. I didn't mean to do that. And then I just hung up the phone. After 2 weeks later, I get a letter, thick packet letter in the mail. Like, it was thick. I was like, what is this? And it was him expressing all of his hurts, all of his pain, all the things that have happened. And I was just appreciative of him sending that letter. And then that started the journey of him healing and actually getting clean because he let everything out. And bottom line is that I just made peace with him I just followed whatever that was on me that day and said, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not expecting anything back. I don't need anything back from you, but I'm going to leave love with you. Like you said, love is the most powerful. I'm going to just leave love with you and let you know that I love you and I'm sorry. And I literally left it. And he came back. It worked on him. I had no idea what it was going to do. And it worked on him. And he told me the other day that it was a part of him getting himself clean. And so we never know the power of the love that we give. But sometimes it's just our responsibility to go drop it off and walk away. And you never know what is going to happen. But I know one thing is that, a dog knows when it's being loved. An animal can tell when it's being loved. If you just drop love off to somebody, you don't know where it's going to go. And I just say that to everyone. And it's hard. We have to die to ourselves, though, in order to do that. I had to die to my ego. Because my ego, I didn't do that. It's you. But I had to die to my ego. And now we have a great, our relationship is great. So I say all that to say sometimes it's just humbling yourself, dropping some love, remembering some good moments, and just and leaving it. Starla talked about her sister, and I could imagine the level of pain, and to be able to overcome that that's why she says what she says. It's the most powerful thing in the world. You have to have that type of, understanding of this. You have a relationship now because of that. So it all has to go back to love to me. That's where I have to leave it.
Dom, the word you said that was most significant for me is without expectation. Because we are kind to people and we expect them to be kind back. And the reality is they are where they are, and the reality of love, it is transformative and it's healing. And so Maya Angelou says, how you treat another person speaks volumes about who you are and nothing about who they are. And so when we know this stuff works, just give it and walk away. Don't give it and wait for, okay, now we're good. Because they may not be ready, they may not be where you are. We're in different places on our journey. I love my sister. I think she's an amazing human being. I just see her very stuck. And to this day, she has a hard time being with me. But it's not because I rejected her. And there were times when we were, after all this, where we did stuff together, and she had living with my mom and dad, and we would all hang out. So it's not anything you have to hold on to. It's something that you choose to hold on to.
Hi. So personally, I'm very stubborn and I'm very combative, and I know that about myself because I know my family and they're 10 times as combative as I am. So recently, one of my family members hurt another family member of mine emotionally, and they don't even know that we all know that they did that, and it kind of just hurt me indirectly, and we're all trying to maneuver around that person because at the end of the day, they're still family, and we don't want to just excommunicate them. So I was just wondering, like, how do I communicate with them that what they did isn't cool, and like, your actions don't just affect that relationship with that person. It throws off the whole dynamic of the entire family. So like, how do I communicate that?
Well, I know a little something about when something messes up the whole dynamics of a family. See, people are where they are. You can't fix it. Trust me, I tried. It will make it worse. But you can speak your truth. And your truth is, what you did really hurt so-and-so. And because they were hurt, I feel the hurt too. You can acknowledge that with them, but they may not respond. See, we're afraid. We say, I'm going to say something to you, and you're going to say, okay. Forgiveness is the gift you give yourself so you can be free. Sometimes you have to forgive dead people. Do you understand? Because you're carrying dead people hurt. And so the reality is just accept who they are, because you said they've done stuff before. Accept who they are, but you've got to alert them on how what they do affects your lives. Let me give an example. We recently had a celebration of life for my mother, and my children didn't particularly want to invite my sister. And I was okay with that. I would have invited her, but they didn't want to, so I was like, cool, this is their celebration, they're making it happen. And she got very upset, and she was calling everybody but me. And then finally she called to me because my aunt told her to, and she said, I can't believe you had this celebration for my mother and you didn't invite me. And so I shared with her, I said, look, I said, the celebration has happened. It's over. We're gonna do it again. You can even host it next time. In other words, speak your truth. But the reality is you can't control whether or not they will receive that. Are you following me? Don't get caught up in how they're gonna respond. You've gotta let you out of you.
And if I can just add on to that, like, if you don't want to actually speak to them, write them a letter or send them, even if you want to send it in a text message, but to get it out of you will free you. So that's the most important thing.
There was a hand right up here. I saw her. And then Baba.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chanel. So when I'm the oldest out of 4, and I'm the only one who has a different dad out of the 4. So me and my mother, ever since I was young, we've had a thin line between love and hate. And I've always wanted this relationship with my mother, just the mommy loving relationship. And we would always just fight all the time. And my sister passed away at a young age. She was probably about like 19, 20, and she passed away in 2006. And I will always pray to God all the time to have this relationship with my mother. And no one's perfect, but it just never really happened. And just recently, out of nowhere, I'm getting this relationship and this love from my mother, and I'm having a hard time accepting it. And I'm in this healing stage, and this is the second part of my healing stage. And the healing stage is my family. And I knew it was going to be the toughest part of my life, so I saved it towards the end. So now that I'm getting this love from my mother, as much as I've wanted it all my life, I'm having a hard time accepting it. And with my spirit, it's making me extremely uncomfortable. Now, she doesn't see it. You know, I'm receiving it so she can see it, but in my spirit, it's making me very, very uncomfortable because it's been going on for so long. So I was just looking for words of encouragement.
We don't know our mother's journeys. We don't know our father's journeys. And everybody's doing the best they know how to do at any given moment. And often people grow and we miss it because we're still stuck back when they weren't grown yet, if that makes sense. You know, trust it, believe it, and then you can allow it because you're still protecting yourself. Y'all don't want to talk to us?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm referred to as Baba Aki. And this is a deep session. There's a lot of pain in this room, but that's okay, because there's a drain for that pain. I have a couple of things. You know, when that young lady was talking, we were talking about family issues. I do a lot of work with adolescents, teenagers in prisons, well, you name it. I was down in Trinidad doing some work in the prisons down there. And I was going to do a session with the prison officers to help them to work better with the teenagers that they're working with. And so they were giving me a tour of the prison. And there was this one section, they called it respect. Now, I kind of tried to walk away from going to that section because it looked dark and dismal. And it was about 20 cages that was about 15 feet long, 10 feet long, a big prison cell, with young men, all there for capital crimes. So I walked to each cage and I asked the young man in the cage, "What are you here for?" And his answer would be, "Murder, sir." And my question back to him would be, "Who murdered you?" Well, there was this one young man, when he walked up, I says, "What are you here for?" He says, "Murder, sir." I says, "Who murdered you?" He said, "Well, sir, my brother murdered my other brother." Get me? My brother murdered my other brother. So what did he do? He murdered that brother. And my question to him was, how does your mother feel about that? We don't know the path of our mothers and fathers. We don't understand sometimes that they were human beings and they struggled. I was 60 years old when I found out my mother was molested as a child. But my mother was, you never had that indication. She was a bit testy. And growing up, if the orange tree had an orange, my father never let us eat the orange until the neighbors got it. It's how we grew up. It's how we understood love. Love, God is love, right? So the great emphasis we have on love is the emphasis we have on God. What is our relationship with love? The relationship we have with love is the relationship we have with God. And we cannot love this lady more than we love this lady. Our relationships are different. Isn't that what you're saying, Starla?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my personal belief. Expectations. My wife and I got into a heated contest one day about expectations because I told her I had no expectations of our children, neither of my students, and that couldn't wrap around her mind. But my expectations are of myself. And I expect myself not to accept any less from you than I know you're capable of giving. Other than that, my expectations become your burdens. You send your child home to do the homework, you know the child can do the homework, but when the child get home, everybody's fighting and cussing. So now the child is scared to come back to school to you, so now we have a self-esteem problem, we have all kinds of problems. So anyhow, before I took over this whole thing, one more thing. Power, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, is the ability to define reality and have someone else accept it as their own. Do you want to see your power in your hands, or you want to see your power in my hands? And that's where you got to make the mix, right?
Thank you, Baba. Thank you.
Thank you. So speaking of family love, I had a great family growing up. We didn't have drama. Everyone loves everyone. And then one of my siblings marries a covert narcissist, and then that changes everything. And how do you talk of getting rid of toxic people in your life, and then there's those that you can't get rid of. Like, how do you navigate the new family dynamics now that a covert narcissist has entered the picture, not by birth, but by marriage? And your sibling, or whoever, is now in this trance, and every once in a while he manages to come out of the trance for a few minutes and then goes back in. Like, how do you maintain that relationship with this person you know is no longer who you used to know, but is now an extension of somebody else? And his reality is what that person says reality is, even if it's staring us all in the eye, and we all know that the color of that stage is gray, but they say, no, it's red. How do you navigate that? And especially if there's multiple instances of that, where because of the personalities in your family, it's easy for the people to attract narcissists. And you have to deal with a lot of this. How do you navigate that and still just be you and not lose yourself? And if you lost yourself, how do you gain it?
Okay, well, before we go into relationships, I just want to say, we choose always how we're going to respond to any situation. And the challenge is we struggle with wanting to fix the situation and make it good for everybody, and that's not possible. How I processed my pain around my situation was different from how my children processed it, was different around my father processed it, my friends processed it, because my friends were hurt too. So I say that you gotta let people be where they are. And you're the one who suffers when you don't. Does that make sense? You're the one who suffers when you don't. One of my children decided, I want a daddy, and my daddy is not stepping up. So she found herself a daddy. And he's been amazing in her life. And he's helped her see what men are for and what men are capable of. And so she raises her standard as well. And I thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Cameron. I play basketball. I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that if I can. My dad, he's, I guess you could say, a covert narcissist. Yeah. He's kind of controlling, I guess you could say. He left me and my siblings when we were little. Like, he left us, like, midlife, and I really needed him. And I hated him for the longest. Like, to the point where I felt like he abandoned me. I didn't even want to talk to him. But at the same time, I needed him because he was the only person I had in my life that really taught me how to be a man, how to play basketball. He was always my greatest teacher and my greatest coach. And I found myself conflicted because I wanted to be with him, but I knew it was no good for me. So I found out how to work through that. And the best advice I can give is that you can't let somebody determine or dictate your life. You got to basically stand your ground. And you'll bump heads at first. You'll even be scared because you don't want to disappoint that person. But once you get through it, it's all worth it. Because me and my dad, we have a good relationship now. I'm playing college basketball, and he's pushing me towards my goals to the point where they're saying I can possibly make the NBA. So you can see that when two conflicting parts come together to agreement, that good can come out in the end.
Okay, thank you.
I think that was really important what Cameron just shared, because we're searching for the perfect mother, the perfect father, the perfect spouse, but it doesn't exist. And so the fact that he was able to still get what he needed from his father had something to offer, not just throw it away and say, I don't need you. He actually humbled himself to say, I still need this person, even though there are ways about him that don't resonate with me. He was still able to get his needs met. So I think that was real important what Cameron just shared.
And he spoke his authentic truth, and that's important. So relationships, because that's where we are now, because times are moving.
I think, relationships? Relationships, right?
If growing up, the way you related and learned love was unhealthy, how do you begin to recognize what healthy love is when you're seeking relationships?
One of the reasons we brought some healthy, loving couples to you today is so that they could begin to answer that question with us. So, is anyone?
Did everybody hear the question?
Repeat it.
He said, if you grow up seeing unhealthy relationships, how do you then learn how to create a healthy relationship with the people you're meeting? Does any one of our amazing relationship?
If you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, you cannot have a healthy relationship with anything or anybody else. Relationships, they come and they go. When you meet, my wife and I have been together for 37 years. We married 34 of those 7 years. We have 4 sons. We have about 15 grandchildren. We lost count of them. Do you think that in 37 years we haven't been toe-to-toe? No. You have to have a purpose. Purpose gives direction to life, and your relationship must have a focus. And you must have something that you want to work for together. My wife has a list. We made a list when we met together. It's the yellow pad. So there were 2 pages. And we made a list of everything we wanted to achieve. And is there anything we didn't? The Mustang. I have a 67 Mustang. Well, the Mustang came later. But what I'm saying is when we met, we made the list. So what that list was a direction. It was a focus. It was, hey, man, we were trying to achieve these things. So you look towards something to work together for. You have to understand that she is who she is, and you are who you are. And anytime you try to control who she is, you are looking for trouble. And vice versa. But more than likely, another thing is for brothers, you mentioned about brothers. You see this ego thing that we have, this manhood that we've been trying to find for a long time. I'm a man, and we were being misdirected as to what a man is like. Brother said it. The best man, the strongest man is a humble man. If a man is not humble, he is weak. If a man cannot go down on his knees to talk to a child, he is dominant over that child. So we have to find things about ourselves, but just make a little deal with your mate. Hey, let's do this. What do you think about children? A lot of times we get together and, hey man, she's fine. Bam, 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 bam. Next thing you know, we married, or you're a baby mama or something, and you never discuss anything about who you are. And then you're starting to find out that I don't really like you. I hear scholars say, the next person you have sex with will be in your life for the rest of your life. That's enough to give you thought as to how you're going to develop your relationships. You have enough history what are the things that you're looking at? You're looking at baby mama drama on television. You're listening to people who have nowhere to go. Oh, girl, dump that Negro. You know, well, maybe you should, but before you dump him, find a way to dump the pain. It is the pain from the heart. Pain, anger causes pain. Anger is a wall that hides pain. It could come in the form of a screw face, a hands off. Are we together here on this? And anger keeps the pain behind the wall and keeps you at a distance. How do we get to that pain? We have to be humble. So in relationships, we have to share each other's pain. We have to have a purpose. And in our house, we hold hands and we pray every day. Don't go to church one lick. I can't tell the last time I've been in a church. But the prayer is to concretize our purpose because we know that we are going to be challenged every day in our relationship. And I could be a good man today. Let me go outside and somebody come and shoo that they saw me doing something. I'm the worst man on the planet. And one more thing, which is very important. When we got married, we first lived in an apartment complex. The lady upstairs came knock on my door, me and her getting ready to go to the club, it was my birthday, to tell me that my wife is screwing her husband. She was cooking. So I said, okay. So I got out the kitchen, the phone in the kitchen. I said, well, let me go in the bedroom. So I go in the bedroom and I said, well, don't you know my wife? She says, yes. I said, well, did you talk to her about that? She says, no. I said, well, why are you talking to me? She said, well, I figure we can do our own thing and make them mad. I said, okay, hold on a minute. So this is what I did. I went to the kitchen and I told my wife, baby, the lady upstairs said you're screwing her husband. And she said, what? Give me the phone. I says, no, you go up there and talk to them. 2 hours later, she didn't come back yet. I thought they did something. But what happened, she and the woman sat in the living room waiting for that chicken man to come out the bedroom where he was hiding because he never thought she would come and confront him. I'm telling you the story to tell you because there are people who will see you and feel jealous of you and try their best to destroy you, and do not listen to them. Listen to your heart and confront your mate. Get it from him or from her. But people on the outside will come after you like that. And you already have your little issues from before. And that just makes things worse. Like young lady back there who was real stubborn. Could you imagine her boyfriend telling her, no, baby, it wasn't me? She whoop his butt. Anyhow.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yo. I'm Teresa Valladolid. And before I make some comments, I just want to thank Starla and her family for sharing the stories they did. Because I've known Starla for many, many years, and I just never knew that side of it. So thank you for sharing. So I was fortunate that I was raised, I'm Filipino father, Mexican mother. It was a beautiful relationship. We were happy kids. But next door, my aunt and her husband lived, and so they used to get into really awful fights. He would pull her hair, and then she would cry, and she says, don't ever marry, because this is what's going to happen. So I grew up with that kind of I guess, a shield that, okay, if I was going to be married when I grew up, it had to be somebody like my dad, because my dad was, to me, he was, just like ideal. So I grew up like looking for telltale signs of of men that would tell me, like, are they going to be kind and respectful of me? And so what I learned through the years, then I went to San Diego State, got involved in the Mecha movement, you know, the farm worker movement, so met a lot of people, some two-sided, some very kind. But then I began talking about relationships, is looking at telltale signs like how do they get along with their siblings? How do they get along with friends? How do they treat their friends? Do they say one thing one day and then something else the next day? How do they get along with their parents, their mother, their father? And so I met a lot of men and dated them. And then when I met my husband, David, we've been married for 43 years. Thank you. And he's actually the father of Sherehe, who adopted him. So what I've learned in relationship, and the reason I think that we've been together, and you know, I agree with what was said before, that you know, it's never like always roses, but there's a lot of ups and downs. But I found out that there was a greater calling. Like when I was at San Diego State, there was the Mecha movement, the Chicanos, and then the African American, and the Black Power, and Puerto Rican. And there, being that my parents were farm workers, then I was really attracted to that movement and knew firsthand what it meant to work in the fields and not get paid minimum wage. So to me, that was like my focus. It was the improvement of the community. It was social justice. And so when I met somebody that had similar views, he'd been a Vietnam vet. His father died when he was only 5 years old. So when the focus was more of the movement, the community empowerment, making our world a better place, then that connected us because we had the same values. And we respected each other, and again, you know, we have 2 beautiful daughters and now 5 grandchildren, and they're beautiful and kind, and we hope that we've done a little bit of, you know, of educating. But so that would be my, especially for those who are still young, is look at telltale signs. I was lucky, none of at least my immediate family, have been sexually abused or have been in very negative relationships. And I think it's, in my case, is because you look for telltale signs, and sometimes somebody is kind, but you know, if they're not that same way with their siblings or friends or their parents especially, if they have that relationship, negative relationship, then you know, stay away regardless of what they say or do. So thank you, Starla, and your family for putting this together. Thank you.
Turn it off.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. To answer your question, what you said about how can you make a healthy relationship when you hadn't seen them? When you don't have that type of an example, how you treat each other. You can see when people, closer, okay, that's better. You can see how people relate and how they communicate with each other without saying a word, a look, you know? As far as what I wanted to tell you about a healthy relationship for yourself, would be first to identify what do you bring to the relationship yourself, you know? So it all begins with self. What do you bring? And then whenever there's a situation, what do you bring to make it better or to make it worse? What do you give? You think? And I would just say, something that worked for us was not being too quick. Yeah, not being too quick. Talk. Get to know the person. Be friends. I wouldn't let him near me. Like, who are you? You know? Let's talk. Let's go to the movies, go to dinner, let's eat, let's go bowling. become friends first. Don't be too quick, to jump into a relationship. Get to know who the person is, and especially before you have children, if you don't have them already. So building a healthy relationship would be what you bring to it yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Mama Marlene.
I think I need to go, yeah. I'm back here. How y'all doing today? I'm gonna walk up to the front. I don't want y'all to make your neck hurt and none of that stuff. Yeah, basically my name is Jason Cousins. I was a student in her class and we was talking about relationships. Is we correct today? Yes? Yes. Okay, so basically the first thing you have to do is have a relationship with God. And if you don't have no relationship with God, then how can you have a relationship with anybody else? The second thing is understand the person that you're with. Now, understand, like he said, us men, we do have egos as well as women, but we have to understand to be each other balanced. Now, one thing about balance is it start off with communication and understanding. And if you don't have a communication understanding, then how would y'all understand each other? It's just like listening to loud music and the only thing you hear is the beat, but you never hear the lyrics. You hear the beat and you're bobbing your head. Yeah. But you don't never know what the artist is saying. So it sounds like mumble rap. That's how arguments are. And when two people are mumbling, they blood pressure goes up. Everybody know about the blood pressure situation. So basically the thing is this. As long as y'all sit down and have a proper communication and one know how to submit and say, you know what, baby, you're right. I was wrong. That would kill the whole situation. So only thing I'm saying is love each other. Love each other because God loves us all. And if we say we love God, then we should be able to love each other. That's it. Thank you.
So I want to add, because I love this, but I want to add, what people call a conversation and what people call an argument are two very different things. They're very different things. I've had very few arguments in my life. I have friends, one of them's here today, that I've never had an argument with. And we've been friends since we were 9. But we've had conversations. We've had disagreements. We have to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. Does that make sense? Be kind to one another in your discussions.
This was for the friends and family. My name is Shanae, by the way. Hey, y'all. So I'm one of 5 girls my mom had, and I'm the middle child. And I'm the mender, like I'm the one that fixes everything, that brings everybody together. And I moved out here to California, and I'm the only one that's here, and the rest of my family is back at home. And now that I'm not there, there's no one to fix the problems with my sisters. And I moved out here mainly so I can heal myself instead of focusing on their traumas and stuff. I'm trying to do my own, take care of myself. And I'll be going back over there for spring break, and it's just, how do I get back into that environment that was pretty toxic for me, and without losing myself in the process that I've gotten to this healing place that I'm in.
So you know you have the answer to that, right?
I mean...
Look, going back is a choice. So to go back, you may want to inform them of who you have become. I'm no longer your fixer. And when I come back, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk. Don't bring each other up to me. Y'all work that out. I've just come to enjoy you. You give yourself permission to speak your truth. I was pregnant with one of my children, and my mother was trying to fix everybody's life. And so she was telling me all the woes of the world. And I said, look, Mom, I said, I'm pregnant. I want to have a happy, peaceful child. I don't want to talk about anybody's issues. I said, so I'm going home, and you're welcome to come visit me. but we can't have any conversations about other people's stuff. She was very upset, like, who do you think you are? But I went home, and then she called me a few weeks later. She says, oh, well, your dad and I were thinking about coming down and visit. I said, you're more than welcome. You know what I don't want to talk about. It was one of the best times together we've ever had. We have to set our boundaries. We have to set our own boundaries. So you got options.
Okay,
So-
we have a question here, and then I'm going to bring it up to
to the front.
Doc and Jack.
They're coming. She's coming
So
for you.
thank you. My name is Philip, and I just wanted to make an observation. This is really powerful, this whole session, and it's really needed. There's a lot of times when, as a community, and when my understanding of community is inclusive of all race, ethnicity, so it's not just one ethnic group. When we come together, we talk about trauma, usually around police violence, things like that. But this is healing because it covers the whole spectrum, family, relationship, which I think is really needed because sometimes we ignore this aspect. So thank you, Professor Lewis. Always want to call you Dr. Lewis.
It's okay.
And your daughters. So this is remarkable. The one thing that I would say in terms of the whole relationship and the dynamics around families, I remember growing up and wanting to hug my dad, but he was not a hugger. He would just put his hands out. And so one of the things that I've made a point, I have a son who's 25. I give him a hug. And so now he's maybe a little less comfortable doing that. But that's one of the reasons that I do that, is to let him know, not just verbally, but physically, that how much it means to me. Because my dad's, his idea of love was, I provide for you, you have this, you have that, I don't need to tell you I love you. Okay? So, but that's important. Words are important, and how we express them is important. So thank you for having this event. This is like really good.
And just know this, for all of you who've not had them say, I love you, just say it to them. Just say it to them. Just say it to them. And if they're anything like my dad, it'll sound like this. Oh, I love all y'all. And then it'll get closer and closer, and then one day you'll hear, I love you. But they haven't heard it either. They don't know how to say it.
I just wanted to add about how do you identify healthy relationships when you don't grow up with seeing that. I think for me, growing up and seeing what unhealthy looks like, I was very observant as a child, so I knew it didn't feel good. I knew when my mom was crying or when there was a lot of yelling and stuff like that. I knew that wasn't healthy, but that's what I knew. And so I always said, this is what I wanted. Like, if I was ever going to be, this is what I wanted to look. I didn't want it to look like this. And so I made it a point to, and then just seeing behaviors, like certain behaviors, and being cognizant of it and saying, like, that's not okay, and identifying that for myself. So for me, it was looking at what I wanted a healthy relationship to look. How did I want to feel loved, and recognizing it and knowing what was, when I recognized behaviors and patterns that I knew was cognizant of something unhealthy, saying this is too familiar for me and this isn't what I want, and walking away from that. And one of the things about being affectionate, my parents were never affectionate. So for me, the first time I got a hug was in middle school. It was my birthday, and my friends hugged me. I would always see my friends hugging and stuff like that, but I was never a hugger. And so on my birthday, my friends hugged me and they said, happy birthday. And I just stood there because it was uncomfortable. Like, I was like, the whole day, that's all I kept thinking about. This is so uncomfortable. Like, why are they hugging me? But they were showing me love, right? And but my parents never showed me love. My parents never said, I love you, or they never hugged me. They weren't affectionate people. So for me, that was the most uncomfortable feeling ever. So, but I knew they were giving me love. So I made it a point to hug people. So when I when I went back to school, I would hug my friends. At first, it was uncomfortable. For a long time, I felt really uncomfortable hugging people because I wasn't used to it. But now, I'm a hugger. I'm very affectionate. And I didn't know that about myself. So if I didn't force myself to be uncomfortable, because I knew that was them being affectionate was them showing me love. And so at first, because I didn't know what that looked like, it was really, really uncomfortable for me. But I forced myself, and through practice, I realized that I'm a very affectionate person. So when I see people like shaking hands for me, that's weird now. So like, I'm always like, I'm a hugger. So I hug people now, and I'm a very affectionate person. And I have 2 nephews, and it's interesting seeing how my parents were never affectionate to us, but we're so affectionate to my nephews. Like, we're always hugging them, we're always kissing them, we're always telling them how much we love them and how much we're proud of them. We're always affirming them, and seeing that makes me feel good, because it's something that I didn't have growing up, and seeing how confident and how amazing my nephews are feels so good. And my nephew, like he's gonna be 5 tomorrow, and he's so confident, and he's so loving, and he's so kind. And that makes me feel good. And like, it's so funny because he'll have people like his uncles who are not very kind, and they don't share. And he's like, Auntie, so-and-so isn't kind. I don't know why, because I'm kind and I like to share, and he doesn't let it define him. And like he said, like, I want to protect him at all costs. So we, even though he knows that, but he's so confident and so sure of himself that it's like, I don't want him to ever lose that. And so we, as a family, me and my siblings, we do everything that we can to affirm that. And my sister says boundaries. So when my sister says, Asif is no longer allowed to watch YouTube, or he's in trouble, we as a family try to respect her wishes and say, you know you're not supposed to be doing that, because he'll try to, he's 5, he tries to test us, but as a respect for my brother-in-law and my sister, we try our best as a family to respect their decisions and their parenting. So when my sister and my brother-in-law say no, we all say no. When they said he can't do this, he cannot do that. And so we try to all be on the same board, but like I said, seeing healthy relationships, it's uncomfortable at first, but you have to know what you want a healthy relationship to look like and practice that, because that's the only way it's going to.
So I want to, we're coming to the end of our program, but we brought some amazing examples, and we've asked them to share a word or a sentence or a thought with you. And so I'm going to, we get to start with our healer. All right, now, those of you who need any kind of physical or emotional healing, he's the man. I'm just saying.
Thank you. My name is Robert, and my wife and I have been together now 38 years. We've got like 19 grandkids. She lost count. I kind of try to keep up. But the mantra I always follow, or rule, or whatever, happy wife, happy life.
There you go.
Okay, I put her first in everything. As far as I'm concerned, she's always right. But now, that's a two-way street. Because on some hand, we're like the yin and yang of each other. She's a little bit, she was, a little bit more impulsive, reacts quicker. I have to analyze. I have to break it down. I have to see it laid out in front of me in here first before I commit. And so that's how we work together. If I see her jump the gun, I slow her down. Hey, babe, what about if this? She'll take a moment to think about and say, oh, okay, that is better. All right, so we kind of work together. The other thing is we have a spiritual foundation. That's how we started out. We became friends, associates, whatever, through our spiritual relationship. We both had jobs. She was in the New York City Police Department. I worked in computers. So we could spend quite a bit of time on the phone talking. and it was always about spirituality. And so I had already been initiated on my path, my spiritual path, about 7, 8 years before I met her, maybe even more. And then she got initiated. Once she got initiated, I turned her over to the Lord. She married him at that moment. So I don't think about what she does. When she's not with me, I don't worry about her because I know God has her. And whatever she does, it's against him, not me. Okay, when things get rough, we fall back on the spiritual. That's unbreakable. It's unshakable. That's our foundation. That's our root. We always go back to that. And it always works out. God will never, ever give you more than you can handle. Always remember that. Never. Anything that comes to you, you can handle. You just have to have faith and put your faith in him. And it'll work out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm his wife. And everything he said was accurate. I just want to give it to you, the same sentiments, but from my perspective. As he said, he was initiated on a spiritual path when I met him. Now, we met in a roller skating rink. I don't skate well. He's been paid to skate at parties. So big difference there. I had been skating with my friends, my girlfriends. We would go skating at adult night once a week. And we decided that we would just wear like jeans or sweatpants or whatever, because you can't wear a cute little skating skirt when you can't skate. And we didn't want to draw attention. So I finally learned how to skate a little bit backwards, put on a short tunic, came skating out. That's the first, when he tells the story, he got to look at that thigh, and he's been next to it ever since. To go back a little further, each of us has been married 3 times. So to the young man who talked about not growing up in a loving household, consider that an advantage, because you know what you don't want. You already know that, so you're ahead of the game. Consider it an advantage. I think there's all these couples here that have managed to make it. There are other couples out in the community that you can see who are loving and making their marriages work. So if it wasn't at your house, maybe it was your cousin's house, maybe it was your neighbor's, or maybe it will be your neighbor's. But you know what? The truth is, we teach people how to love us. And as Starla said way back in the beginning, we are all love. We are all love. And if you cultivate that love for yourself within yourself, you will draw to you a partner that's at that level. So work on you, and you'll learn what love means for you. And once you know that, you can teach somebody else how to love you, and they can teach you how to love them. And that's how you'll build a healthy relationship.
Wait. We gotta just make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, and then we'll come back for one more question.
Hi, I'm Steve Farber. Veronica and I have been married for 18 years in April. It's the second marriage for both of us. When we got married 18 years ago, her 3 daughters were 5, 8, and 11. My 2 sons were 13 and 18, and my daughter was 23. So we each brought 3 kids to the party, as it were. And now fast forward, the youngest is 23, the oldest is 41. And we were just reflecting on this the other night. Every single one of them is a very fine human being. And that's the greatest testimony to what we've been able to create together. I'm feeling a little deficient after listening to you guys, because not a single grandchild in the entire bunch. Little bastards. but they're working on it, I hope. But anyway, I just like to add, we've heard so much great wisdom tonight. I just want to add one thing that I don't know if I've heard yet, at least overtly. I think one of the greatest keys to our relationship, and just to give you a little more context, we're married, we're also business partners. We spend an inordinate amount of time together, and it works. And I think one of the keys to that, maybe the most important key to that, is that not only do we appreciate each other in the way that you would expect for a marriage that works, but we are advocates for, champions of, and fans of each other. I'll say virtually no, because nothing is an absolute, except that statement. There's virtually no competition between us. There's no one-upsmanship. It's always about shining the spotlight, placing the other on a pedestal. There are a few things that give me more joy than having meetings, doing our events, meeting people, where I get to introduce them to my wife and business partner for the first time. Where we go to social engagements, I wind her up and I say, go out there and make us some friends, honey. 'Cause that's what she does every single time. And that gives me incredible joy. So being champions of one another, fans of one another, I think is really, really an important key to all of us.
The only thing I would say is, that he didn't say, is just choosing joy, really every day looking for it. Because, in 18 years of being married and raising a boatload of teenagers, there were a lot of moments that it was hard to find the joy, but it's there. And like he said, we have 6 amazing kids. And the other is to laugh, because laughter is a huge part of our relationship. It's also, I don't think that I ever consider myself the funniest person, but he makes me think I'm funny. So, and that feels good.
Hey, y'all. My name's Eric, and hey, I was looking for a friend in the sea of faces, because Starla got me up here talking about love, and yeah, and oh, y'all, it just because I never thought I'd actually be standing in front of you talking about that, because I didn't have the best examples growing up, and what I would call love, and in fact, I probably never said this in front of a crowd before, but in my house there was a monster. And it was pretty scary when you're a little guy, and you think you're all alone, and there's no one around there, that person's supposed to be the one that gives you the love, but it's the one that's hurting you the most. And then that was my pops, and I have a totally different understanding of what that is today, but when you're 8, 9, and he's coming at you, you just want to run as far as you can go. And you're always in a perpetual state of fear, scared, and you may not make it. And then my support around me, my mom, just try to make it good, make it all right. It's not a worry. She gave me the phrase, fake it till you make it. Probably heard that before. Well, I'll tell you what, after about 30 years, I got real good at making fake. Yeah, so real good at the master. Looking good in the suit, Kobe shirt popping, all the time. It was always about this in front of me, never about what was really going on inside of here, the heart. And so that caused a lot of pain. As a big man, you're supposed to make your decisions, supposed to do your things, supposed to, and when you got a good smile and you're kind of charmy swarmy, you can get away with a lot of things. And it brought a lot of pain by not being real and protecting and always wondering, man, you're going to see me for what I really am. That wasn't good, because this guy's just scared, freaking out. Don't know nothing about love and don't know how to, anything about that. And so I had to go through a lot of this pain and a lot of this suffering, and it caused a lot of turmoil in my life, and I wondered why there was so much turmoil and so many things that weren't right. And what I have been practicing for almost the next decade was to stop faking, making, and probably just more just being real, and just stop that whole, I just wasn't gonna take the fake anymore. I was gonna shake that fake, right? I'm just here to tell you that being vulnerable and tell you that things aren't always right, or things may not look the way you think they might be, or that you might have a certain perception of me when you see me. It's probably not real. It's just our own story bouncing off. And so that's what I learned, compassion and empathy for others, because it was always just, that didn't matter. I'm going to go through you to get mine, because there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough love. There wasn't enough self. There wasn't enough nothing. So I've had to really learn, and it's a daily practice, that there is enough because I am enough. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And so on this journey and on this process and on just this living day to day, I come across Marcy 3 years ago. And when she first came up to me and we were starting a relationship or starting a connection, I said, nah, you don't want none of this. I'm working on myself, and I'm too scared. I'm too scared to tell her the truth, that I'm too scared to give love, because I'm going to hurt me, right? So I'm so protective, so scared, so fearful. And all she's doing is like, she's not even 5'1". She's 5 foot 3/4, what she always said. 3/4 is important. And she stand up to me like this, 100 pounds less than me, like little thing, but so powerful, saying, no, I'm standing right here until it's different because I see you, right? And I didn't trust that. I thought that was just some more running game, playing, fronting. But what I realized in this is that is the truth. And through these 3 years, while they haven't been 100% easy, they've been really great. They've been phenomenal, the growth that we've done in this time. And the thing that I can tell you, it's only through my own experience, my own thing, is that love really is a pathway of giving and receiving, feeling worthy of receiving that love. And that's what I realized I was pushing off from her. I'm like, nah, I ain't worthy of that. I caused a lot of pain, a lot of strife, and I got it in me still. So I'm willing to let that go and willing to stand there toe to toe with her and say, look, this is who I am. And so how I do that practically today, the practicality of it, is that when we have discussions and whatever they are, when I feel the heat, because we all get hot, especially guys, we start to get a little prickly, or we get defensive or reactive is the thing. I get myself out of that reaction super, super fast, right? And that might mean I need 5. Ooh, over here for a little bit. But when I come from a place of who I am and I'm just responding versus reacting, because that reaction's that old stuff still back there. It's still there, man. There's some old stuff back there. It's like tears me up. But I know that I'm safe here because on top of the love, or next to it, is that I have trust. It's like the biggest thing, man. It's the biggest thing, that I trust her and I trust me, because I ain't gonna trip out on her. I'm not gonna go sideways because I can't handle it, or it's the way I think, or that I don't feel like I get this, so I'm gonna tear it up. Come on, stop that today. That's all I can say about that. It's just trust, stay in connection, frequency of interaction all the time. What are we doing? We're checking in. We're doing this together. Okay, it's our path. And just keep doing it, man. You know, I'm not as articulate as it comes out, because I'm like, what the heck am I talking about? I'm having this duality experience while I'm talking to you going, are you really saying all those things? Yep. So thank you for always doing this for the planet, because if you guys really get what's happening, because what we talk about, because Marcia and I work together too, and we talk about passion plus purpose equals world change, right? When you connect your passions and your purpose together, then that change the world. That world is what changes, it's your world, internal first, so you can change that. So with that, go change the world. Peace.
Thanks, Eric. I'm Marcy, and I just really want to echo so much of what you all said. I was on a long journey of loving myself first, and to me, that is the first key. So much of what everyone said here today has been so much of my own journey. Did not grow up with two healthy examples myself. And like you said, that made me clear on what I didn't want to have and made me clear on what I did want to have. So I actually had my own list, like of what I wanted in that person. And what I realized is it was really a mirror reflection of myself. And I do feel having a shared purpose of Eric and I doing this work together. We met on purpose, where Starla and I are part of Community Alliance for Youth Success, and Steve too. That was really, really important to me, because we are helping young people live their dreams, and we pull so much from our own challenging childhood to be able to support other people. So I know we've been through this challenging journey to grow, to love ourselves and love each other, and extend that out to the world. So it is a daily practice, and sometimes I need to pause too and think, I don't want to respond, or I don't want to react in an old way. I really want to learn some new tools. And for me, it's been really important to have other mentors and other examples of healthy relationships to pull from. So I'm still figuring it out. So grateful for people like Starla, and today I learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Starla, and all your family for putting on this tremendous discussion. My name is David. As my wife pointed out, I was raised by a single mother. My father passed away at the age of 39, left her with 5 babies, ages 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. She brought us to San Diego out of Fresno because her father and her sister had moved down to Ensenada, and my father had relatives in Tijuana, so they all convinced her, get near the border so we can help you. We were the first Mexican family to move into North Park. Every day, the kids in the neighborhood rode by and yelled out, dirty Mexicans, go back home. Wetbacks, spics, every name they could call. And so my brothers and I would call them back, and we'd get into fights. And my mother would sit at the window and plead with us, come in, come in here. We'd go in the house, and she would say the golden rule to us 1,000 times. Treat others how you want them to treat you. Say to others what you want them to say to you. And then I would say, but Mom, they called us this. She goes, they don't know you. Get to know them. There's only one race on this earth, the human race. And if you get to know them, they will love you as I love you. And over time, we began bonding with all the kids in the neighborhood. And to this day, 63 years later, we are still friends and we are still bonded. And so when I first met my dear wife, Teresa, and saw that she and her family had the same values of love, of caring for each other, of supporting each other, then I knew that we could bond together. And then when I found out that she was committed to the same struggles that I was committed to, the Chicano movement. And I was giving a lecture at San Diego State about 35 years ago, and a non-Latino raised his hand and said, why do you guys have so many names? You're called Hispanic, Mexican-American, Latino, and now you come up with this word Chicano. And I said, well, the best explanation I can give you is the Hispanics thinks he or she is part of the pie. The Mexican-American Latino want their proportional share of the pie, and we Chicanos want to change the ingredients of the pie. So I think having the unity in our own struggle to make this a better world, to make sure that our children and our family would all be connected and moving forward, and in the process, they would all be committed to bring about social justice and equality for all people, because we are all one. And my dear daughter, Sherehe, after visiting Mexico, she came back as a poet and wrote a beautiful poem called Somos una gente, we are one people. And she wrote it in Spanish and English, a combination, because she became very fluent in Spanish. And when I met her during the first Obama campaign, we were sitting in a room, and everybody was saying, how are we going to use the poet in this campaign? I said, there was a young 25-year-old sitting next to me. I says, who's the poet they're all talking about? And she goes, I think they're talking about me. And I said, wow. So then we got to know each other. And about 8 years later, she asked me out for lunch on Father's Day and asked me, will you be my father? And I said, I would be honored to be your father. And so I've been her father since. So thank you.
So we have one more sharing, and then we're all going to share together.
Okay. Final say for relationships, for developing your relationship, is to laugh, just like you said, laughter. You said that, right? Laughter. And he thinks I'm funny, you know? But laughter. See, he's laughing now. Laughter. Laugh at yourself, laugh at each other, laugh at other people. That's very important to do. But like you said, happy wife, happy life. Well, he knows that. But I have another mantra. Happy spouse, happy house.
All right now.
Okay? You got to give a brother some love too. He writes sometime. Sometime. Okay?
So, Isha, are you going to? Oh, I didn't see them. Hi.
I told my husband we need to move over there, but he said he didn't want to talk. Okay, how you guys doing? We had a long day today. We had to be up early in the morning because my husband did a half marathon. My boys ran. Oh, yeah, I tell the story. So he's tired, but we made it anyway because I want to do this for make sure I'm here for Starla. I love Starla. I've been knowing her since in my early 20s. I love Shara, and I share Hay too, Isha, and your other sister too, and of course Yaya. I love y'all. Y'all my family. And I wanted to make sure we came. But my name is McKenna Garganu. I'm married to Nasara. We've been married for 14 years. We actually celebrate 14 years on last Tuesday. And what I want to add to the importance of marriage is to become each other rock star. To be there for each other, have each other back, stick together. You're going to have disagreements. You're not going to see eye to eye. And that's part of the process. And it's kind of like what Star said, like we romanticize what we think relationships are all about. And that's not what it's about. It's about someone having your back, no matter how ugly it looks. Because you're going to get challenges. And when the brother said right here about people, hating on your marriage and what you got going on. I just tell my husband that today. I said there's some things that have happened to us just because people are very envious of what we have. And so because of that, you have to protect it. You basically have to pray on it all the day because all the time, because a lot of people do not understand how positive a relationship can be when you work together. And so we live in a world where people don't see it enough. And so I've been blessed. My parents have been married for 47 years. So I understand the power of legacy. And so that's my purpose because I want my kids to know that marriage works too. So thank you so much.
Love, the most powerful force in the universe. And love between people, love between partners, love between couples. And we can't define for other people who to love or how to love. But we have to love and honor and respect the love. So just throw out a couple of things at the end. Finish this sentence for me. Love is. Respect, love is. Kind, love is. Compassion, love is. Powerful, love is. Safe, love is. Understanding, love is. Looking out, love is. Honorable, connecting. It's all these things. It's all these things. But what I want to say is, it's an action word. It's a verb. And we have to show each other that we love each other. And we have to do it when we feel it, and it's our heart, because tomorrow is not promised anyone. I want you to repeat after me. I am brilliant. I am powerful. I am limitless. I am love. I am my own self-validation. Thank you so much for coming. If you're interested, we have a books called I Am My Own Self-Validation and Self-Esteem Work. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I'd rather have you do it.
Where? This one?
Okay. Before you all leave, make sure you stop by our merchandise table and take some love home with you by purchasing the I Am My Own Self-Validation book. It's a powerful and inspirational affirmation book that supports a lot of the things that we were spoken about today. It's actually on sale, so grab one on your way out. Also, please sign our mailing list to stay connected to our Women's Worth events. And once again, thank you all for coming.
So many questions, still left unanswered. So much I've never broken through.